Okay, since we covered Mass Effect Andromeda, one of the largest flops of the BioWare, well, now let's cover the last, well, kind of win of the BioWare. And in this video, we're going to be covering Dragon Age Inquisition, whether it is worth it to buy and play right now, or whether you should just move on to other stuff. And of course, as always, I'm going to be giving you the answer right away to not waste your time. And well, you can treat this as a Google search result where you get the answer right away. And the answer is this. Yes, Dragon Age Inquisition is absolutely worth it to buy right now. And right now, with the Game of the Year's edition and with all the DLCs and all the polish, game is better than ever. And yeah, it will not become any better because yeah, there's no more new things coming in the game. So yeah, it's an amazing RPG. It has good gameplay, good story, and you're gonna enjoy it a lot for pretty long amount of time. So yep, go and get it. But now let's get more into the details. So Dragon Age Inquisition is one of the most weirdly controversial games where people either love it or they kinda hate it, and there's very little in the middle. But in reality, it's neither the best game, neither the worst. It's pretty above average, or rather pretty good game. But what even is it? Dragon Age Inquisition is a third installment in the Dragon Age series after Dragon Age 2, made by BioWare. And this game you're playing in the fantasy open world universe, and well, it's basically an open world RPG. Kind of like a Mass Effect, but in fantasy. It literally tries to be a carbon copy of a Mass Effect, but in a fantasy universe. Game is built around an open world. The game is built around the story and your companion. And well, it covers the story of the big bad guy coming to kill us all, and we need to stop them. And you are the chosen one. Yeah, it's pretty generic, but yeah, it's pretty okay. You are playing as a herald of Andraste, and you are, well, literally a chosen one bestowed by an amazing power to open and close the rifts between the mortal world and a fade, which is basically a dream world. Then at the beginning of the game, a large portal opens and just a bunch of demons are pouring through, and you are the only one who has the power to close this rift and defeat the guy who opened it. The story-wise game is pretty good. It is not as amazing as, let's say, Mass Effect 2 or even 3 before the ending, but it's pretty good. It's one of the best BioWare games, and story-wise, it's one of the best RPGs as well. Some people prefer it over the Dragon Age Origins, but yeah, for me, it's either on par or a bit lower than the Dragon Age Origins, but it's pretty good nonetheless. You have a bunch of companions that you can, well, establish your relationships with, including very intimate ones, and the story puts you in the head of Inquisition. Kind of like a spoiler, but yeah, you're becoming the head of Inquisition, like literally after the first act of the game. So yeah, story spoiler, I guess, for the first hour of the game. And you have this large fortress, and your goal is basically to build up this fortress and to prepare to fight those demon invasions. And the game has a bunch of interesting mechanics, like upgrading of the base, like upgrading your own character, like upgrading your companions, and it even has like a throne room type of gameplay. Basically, you're sitting on a throne, you're brought some kind of issue, and you need to make a decision. Usually, those decisions are concerning the villains that you defeated or you captured, and your goal is basically to decide what to do with them. And it's pretty interesting and pretty cool gameplay mechanic, even though you don't actually do a lot of decisions. It's actually quite a few of them. Overall, story-wise, it's pretty great, except for the side content, because game has a lot of filler content, like a lot of filler content. But if you'll stick to the main story and if you'll enjoy the main story, yep, game will be pretty great. Unfortunately, you kind of have to do a lot of side content in order to progress to the power system. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest downsides of the story itself. As for the world and the gameplay, the game is actually open world, but it's not really. It's actually divided into a few different zones, and those zones are an open world. Probably the largest one is the first one, the hinterlands, but it's probably the most empty, the most boring one as well. So my suggestion would be to just go through the main story there and just leave it as soon as possible, because other regions are much more interesting, like a giant desert or like kind of like a haunted swamps and things like that. And it's pretty interesting and pretty cool. And yeah, I highly suggest you again to move on from the hinterlands to the other regions. And the other regions are actually smaller, and yeah, then they have a lot more interesting content with them. As for the gameplay and the combat, gameplay-wise is basically the same as the other Dragon Age games. It's a kind of a mix of tap targeting combat and an action combat. And if you are playing a lot of MMOs, you will feel like home. You have basically your ability bar, you select your target, and you cast your abilities. That's basically what you do. And combat-wise, it reminds me the most of Elder Scrolls Online than any other games, and it's actually pretty cool and pretty interesting. You can combine the different abilities with your companions to gain additional effects, which makes the combat very interesting. Plus, you can actually take control of your companions and just you play as them if you, well, don't want to play with your own class. Speaking of classes, you basically have the option of choosing between 3 fantasy trope classes, between your strength type of characters like warriors, or dexterity like archers, or like thieves, or mages. That's basically that you have. You also have choice between different races, and those races can actually have some story implications there as well. Zip is not as deep as good as it was with Dragon Age Origins when you were choosing your origin and you had an entirely different prologue depending on your origin. But yeah, here it's more simplified. But because you have an option to play as your companions, if you don't want to play with your character, you just won't, and you just take control of your character only during the story cutscenes or the dialogue. You have kind of like strategic type of control as well, when you can pause the time and give out the orders. But yeah, overall the combat is pretty interesting and pretty fun, and right now, not a lot of games actually have this type of combat. Graphically, game aged pretty okay. Yeah, some facial animations look kind of janky, but yeah, it's still pretty cool as well, especially for the game that's like more than 7 years old. Overall, game is actually pretty interesting, and with a little bit of branching storylines, you have quite a lot of things to do. And with a Game of the Year edition, you actually get a few DLCs as well that expand the story of the game even more. But now let's talk about the pricing of the game. So, game is available on Steam for the base price of $39.99 for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 countries, and can go as low as $4.79 for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 countries. So as you can see, game can actually get pretty cheap. Plus, game is actually available on a Game Pass or with an EA Play if you want. So with this game actually worth it for those prices? Well, not for the full price. Again, the same as with every other old game, not because it's not worth it, but because you're most likely gonna get it for a much cheaper price. And for anything below $10, it's a steal. If you see this game below $10, go and get it. It's 100% worth it. Not just worth it, it's one of the must-play games. But you have to consider one very important thing. Don't get the base version of the game. Always get Game of the Year edition, because Game of the Year edition contains the DLCs as well. And one DLC in particular, Trespasser, is must play. Oh, not because it's actually very good that you need to get it. No, it's actually essential to the story, because this is actually the true ending of the game. Why? Well, story-wise, let me give you kind of like a spoiler to the game. Yeah, it's been out for a really long time, but yeah, I will kind of give you kind of like a spoiler of the game. Because this game, the Dragon Age Inquisition, is the same for the Dragon Age 4 as Mass Effect 2 was to Mass Effect 3. Remember Mass Effect 2 where you had a great mission and it feels like self-contained? But when it's ended, you know that Reapers are coming and you need to prepare for basically Mass Effect 3. The same is with this one. You do have a big bad guy here, but it turns out that there are bigger and the worst guy coming. And the Trespasser DLC was the same as an Arrival DLC was to Mass Effect 2. It's literally a connection between those two games. And it's literally the reveal of the next big bad guy. So yeah, you need to get a Game of the Year edition. Overall, Dragon Age Inquisition is actually a pretty good game, with some minor flaws and minor gripes with the story and an open world, and a little bit with the gameplay, because if you don't enjoy the mix of kind of like tap targeted and action combat, yeah, it's going to be a bit tedious for you, because there are a lot of combat in this game. It's going to be especially frustrating on the higher difficulties if you, well, don't enjoy this type of gameplay. If you will enjoy, well, there is no problem there. Overall, in the package, you're getting so much content, and absolute majority of the story is so good that yeah, for the $10 or less, it's an absolute steal for you, and most likely you're gonna get this for those prices. If you have Game Pass or EA Play, go and get them there as well, because yeah, you have literally nothing to lose, and it's one of the best games there on the both services. So yep, I highly recommend Dragon Age Inquisition, because yeah, it's a really good game, and it's one of the best BioWare games. Unfortunately, since then it was only a downhill. But yeah, that's a story, I guess, for another video. Well, this will be it for today. Thank you for being here with me. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. See ya.